Okay, everyone, 3 more points for Celtic today against St Johnstone. We are now on to 70 points for the season. Most importantly, we have a 9 point advantage again, and we've got 13 games left now this season, John. So we're quickly running out of matches. 4 goals today. Andy Considine own goal, followed by goals from Kyogo, Aaron Moy, and David Turnbull with basically the last kick of the game. And I thought that, all things considered, was a pretty good job.
Effective, yeah. I was more than happy with what I saw today, especially, in the first half. It's always difficult when you turn up to an away ground in Scotland and the pitch is difficult. And I actually thought Callum Davidson set St Johnstone up well today. And it was ultimately the quality and the ruthlessness of Celtic that unpicked them, which was the most satisfying part. It wasn't down to St Johnstone really doing anything wrong. It was more, Celtic excellence getting the first 3 goals over the line and sending us on our way to another 3 points. So satisfying is the word I would use about today, Hamish.
They don't mind getting dirty, this team, do they? And they certainly did get dirty in today's game. I feel like everything I'm going to say to do with today's game is going to have the caveat of the pitch, because I don't think that was the most sparkling Celtic performance you'll see all season, but I think given the way the pitch was, it was kind of as good as we could expect. And I thought at times we actually played some really good stuff. There was one move in the second half in particular, the one when I think Johnstone started it and Joe Hart effectively was facing his goal at one point, and we worked the ball all the way up the pitch, and Jota finished by smacking the top of the bar. So Celtic were still trying to play really good stuff today. I just think a pitch like that for a game that we are putting, live on telly, and when you're looking at a stand across from you that's like, I don't know, a quarter full, I just think it's a bit of a bad look for our league, to be honest. I know we can't really talk about pitches at the moment, and I'll fully, face up to that. Celtic Park pitch isn't good enough, but that was a different level today. I mean, the fact that we were able to play any sort of passing football, I think was a miracle.
Yeah, no, I agree. But the way we were so incisive was kind of almost catching St Johnstone off guard. I wouldn't categorise it as counter-attacking football, but we were catching them off guard when they lost possession and really turning them over and really, getting up the pitch quickly with really ruthless combinations, I thought. Yeah. For all 3 of our opening goals was magic, really. And it's a credit to the team that they're able to do that on a surface like that. As I say, the thing about it is Celtic are more than used to this. It's been a difficult winter for Scottish pitches. Celtic Park, Hampden, pretty much all over Scotland, really. I've not seen an exceptional surface of late. And I think that, Celtic are overcoming that. Ange talks about Celtic focusing on their own game or their own processes to overcome outside factors. And I think that you saw the team doing that today. And it, they didn't radically change their game, I didn't think, but just in subtle ways. Like, I thought there was a lot more movement, in close quarters around the ball today. And I think that was maybe, as a result of, or maybe a little bit of tinkering as a result of the pitch, making sure that the passes didn't have to be, sweeping and long and travel across those pitches too much, but kind of, buzzing in and around each other, a lot of nice tight combinations in close quarters, and kind of giving St Johnstone the runaround on certain occasions, certainly in the build-up to the goals.
Yeah, James saying you're describing Ange ball there, and I think there's a fair point in that, because you talk about Ange's football as being this incredibly stylish, easy in the eye, but for me, Ange ball is winning football, and that's the main thing about it, and we saw that again today on a tricky surface. It's interesting you bring up that point that the goals, I can't remember the phrase you used, but for me the goals almost came out of nothing at times. That's not to say we didn't have spells in that first half. We played some good stuff, but I was kind of looking at the scoreboard at half time and thinking Celtic haven't been like blow away brilliant here. We've been effective, and we've scored 3 goals, and all 3 goals, well, I missed the first goal, went away upstairs to get my phone charger, so I had charging my phone when I'm looking at my notes, and missed the opening goal. But I know, but that opening goal it kind of came out of nowhere, and it was just a bit of brilliance from Kyogo, real good desire and energy from Kyogo to get up the park, and obviously Considine puts it into his own net. The second goal, again, it's a great finish from Kyogo, but it kind of comes to him, and then the third goal from Moy, you're kind of again thinking like there was no real massive build up to these goals, but they were just taken so efficiently.
I think that's my point. It was kind of all done turning over the ball and quite, the moves were all quite quickly and quite sharp, quite quick and sharp. A lot of the times when Celtic go away to these matches, we're used to them building up, momentum and a kind of a pressure of possession in and around the box with teams sitting in really, really deep and kind of unpicking them that way. But Celtic managed to do it another way today and kind of taking care of St Johnstone when they were kind of off guard a little bit and being really effective. I think, we'll talk about individuals. I think Aaron Moy was, again, he seems unstoppable right now and seems at the heart of a lot of good things that Celtic are doing at the moment. But also Jota, also Kyogo, I thought those three were particularly good in making sure that we got our goals today.
Moy could play on any surface and still have the slippers out and just look excellent. Again, he didn't give the ball away, at all today. His close control's brilliant. He's a real, big guy. I don't really know what we say about Aaron Moy at this stage because we've been saying it every single game over the last 5, 6, 7 weeks, unless you have anything new.
No, I don't know if it's new, but just watching today, I just think his teammates are getting more used to how to use Aaron Moy, if you know what I mean. Like, when Aaron Moy first came into the team, he was it was difficult for him because I don't think the Celtic players really knew how to use him at his best, and I'm not sure in those initial weeks that Ange was really using him at his best either. Obviously we tried him out in a kind of number 6 role, and that didn't really work out, and then Ange moved them further forward, and I think obviously he's taken back confidence from the World Cup, but I also think it's just, he's building up more synergy and more harmony with his teammates, and they know how to use him now as a kind of turret with the ball, kind of running around him. Like the build up to the first goal today, I know you missed it, but Kyogo just knew instantly that he was going to make a sharp run and that Moy would find him with a little nice pass in. And I think his teammates are knowing how to use Aaron Moy more effectively at the moment, which is obviously making Aaron Moy look even better. And he's 6 goals in 9 games or something now. I mean, from the penalty spot or not, he's been in ridiculous form. And I don't think opponents really know how to deal with him at the moment, Hamish. Like, I don't think teams know how to handle Aaron Moy, or I certainly haven't over the last month or so. And I just thought St Johnstone also gave him just far too much space today, especially in that first half. And he really had the run of the pitch to kind of do what he wanted and kind of figure out what he wanted to do with, his teammates running in and around him. And I think if you give Aaron Moy too much space in this league, then I think he's going to exploit it to great effect at the moment.
But how do you stop Aaron Moy? Because you're saying that, and then I'm trying to think, right, if I was a defender or a defending team or a manager, what would I do? Because he's obviously not got pace. That's the one thing about him, but he makes up for that. But he's so strong, so you don't want to go tight to him because he'll just roll you. You don't want to stand off him because he'll have a shot. We've not actually really seen his long shooting yet at Celtic, but we know from his time in England and Australia that's something he can do. But he can certainly thread passes through, and it's not just Kyogo he's finding; it's the wingers as well. I just think Dies and Maida today again maybe wasn't a complete brilliant performance like we've seen from him since the World Cup, but I just thought he was everywhere in that game. The amount of runs he makes in behind, and he's just such a big part of everything that we do at the moment, and him and Greg Taylor really have got a good relationship. There was a couple of times again when Maida kind of darted in and the ball just wasn't quite right for him from Taylor, but I get Maida would be the one for me probably alongside Kyogo that I'd really pick out from today. Just thought Kyogo was brilliant. The amount of times he would charge over 30-40 yards just to slide tackle someone and keep the pressure on them, and he just scores again. He should actually have had another one right after it that he put over the bar.
Yeah, and even in the second half, I mean, Aaron Moy could have had a second one if, Abada doesn't take the ball at his feet. Aaron Moy was kind of running onto a kind of low cross into the box and looked like he was going to smash into the top corner. But yeah, no, I just think that there's a few players at the moment I feel like are really stepping up to the mark and really making sure that we pick up wins. And Aaron Moy's one of them, Kyogo's one of them, Maeda's one of them, and I think Jota's been one of them as well. I know he's not the blow-away Jota from the start of the season, but he's also so effective. And I thought that his little ball into Moy for Moy's goal and lob over the keeper was exceptional today. Really, really quality, filthy, incisive play that we really love as Celtic supporters.
Yeah, I think Hatate's one as well. I thought in the midfield today there were a few times when passes were kind of under hit and we gave the ball away, but I put that completely down to the pitch. And as I say, I think we did absolutely fine in dealing with it. Defence wasn't wasn't really troubled. I mean, St Johnstone, I thought, did have a little bit more of a go than maybe other teams have had recently, but they didn't really trouble us. I think, Carter Vickers and Starfelt had a relatively straightforward game, and I thought they were good. The big disappointment, not a big disappointment, but the one disappointment from the game would probably be conceding that goal. Joe Hart should do better. It kind of came out of nowhere and seemed a little bit like the rest of the goals in the first half, just to kind of spook everyone, and kind of like straight away you're like that. Oh, St Johnstone have scored. Like, it's a good strike from who was it?
It takes a massive dip. Yeah, it takes. It was Dre right, and it takes a massive dip coming past Carter Vickers, which I think is what ultimately catches Joe Hart out a little bit.
He kind of made it though. Like he did get there, so he should have.
Yeah, he did get there. He got a kind of hand it. I'm not making excuses. I mean, I thought Hart could have done better with that. Carter Vickers was raging to lose the clean sheet. Did you see that?
Was he?
Yeah. He wasn't raging at anyone in particular. He wasn't raging at someone. He was just looked really frustrated that the goal had went in. Even though Celtic were comfortably up at that point, I think that clean sheet thing was probably pretty big for Carter Vickers and Starfelt. But their defensive stats speak for themselves. I know Sky were speaking about it before the match in terms of they've never been beaten in the league when they've both started together, and that continues today. And I don't think we ever looked like we were going to be beaten. And I know the Celtic's defensive work is more than the centre backs, much more than the centre backs. But I think that Carter Vickers and Starfelt combination is just really dominant in Scottish football, really, really dominant. And it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to witness.
Do you think we would have fared any better in the Champions League had those two been our centre back pairing?
I think it was a factor. I don't think we'd really had a settled defence going into that group stage. You know what I mean? Like, and that was a problem of it. It'll be an unanswerable question, because I'm sure there's plenty of people who think, is Starfelt the answer in Europe? Is that going to be what we need? But I do think having a settled defence, having two settled centre backs, not having that available for that group stage was a factor. I know people in the chat saying it was a good strike from the St Johnstone player. It definitely was.
Come on, John, praise him. Come on.
It definitely was a good strike. And as I said, it took out a wicked dip coming, around Carter Vickers. He kind of disrupted. I don't want to get too technical, it sounds like I'm talking nonsense, but he kind of disrupts the airflow of the shot, and it really dips. It really dips. Watch it again. He takes a shot, and it really dips as it comes over Carter Vickers. So that was a factor in it. And he was kind of, I would say Hart was taken by surprise. It wasn't a pure absolute howler. He was just taken by surprise by it, is what I would say.
Probably surprised at a St Johnstone player actually, hitting the target, because I was certainly expecting it, to go high and wide. Second half, fine. I'm glad we got that late goal, because it just adds a little bit of gloss and improves the goal difference as well. It's again, we've kind of strengthened that lead in the goal difference this weekend. The amount of subs in that second half, my word, I don't know how many subs were made, but they all seem to happen in singular kind of instances. So it was like a sub and then about 30 seconds of play and then another sub, and it was like, just get all the subs out at once, let us get on with the game. Maybe I'm just getting grumpy, I don't know. I just felt it really kind of it really just slowed the game down at that stage. But nice we got that late goal. What about Big O, as Joe Hart calls him? Completely schooling, rolling, an experienced Scottish football veteran in Andy Considine. I know he's not the greatest player, but I think that's kind of what we're all expecting from him. He got tight to him, rolled him, and he was in goal if he wasn't dragged down.
He looks handy to me, Hamish. I don't want to go too overboard, because people read too much into your comments or what you've said. Obviously you can't really make a verdict on O at the moment, a definitive verdict on him, but he looks handy and he looks comfortable in getting stuck in and getting on the ball. He doesn't look like he's lacking confidence, is what I'd say. And I think he has obvious attributes that look like he can handle Scottish football. I think he looks strong, and I think he looks like he can be physical if he needs to be, which I think will be a real bonus for him, Scottish football. And obviously I don't think he's going to be quite like a battering ram like Giakoumakis was. I don't think he's going to be that kind of player. But I think he's going to have enough physical strength to kind of offer something different to Kyogo. He's not the same player as Kyogo, but his movement and his sharpness and his game intelligence, I think, could also be quite exciting. I don't think he's just going to be a physical player. I think he's got a good all-round game, and I'm quite excited about it without, trying to go too overboard about it, because what we've seen him for about half an hour in total across all the matches. So it's not, enough game time to really to say for sure. But I'm excited to see him make his first start and see what he can offer in that setting. And I don't know if it's going to come in the cup next week. Ange's kind of talking that, I don't know if you caught this, Hamish, but he kind of talked in his pre-match media conference that he's not resting and rotating Kyogo at the moment, because the data that he's seen from Kyogo in terms of his work rate and his numbers, he doesn't feel the need to rest Kyogo and rotate Kyogo at the moment, which has been a factor. Obviously, the Giakoumakis situation has added to that across January as well. But I'm not sure if he's going to rest Kyogo for this upcoming cup game.
Think
but
he will.
Yeah, I don't think he will either. I don't think he will, but it would be nice to see O start a game soon. I'd quite like to see him start.
I think you treat that game next weekend, given that we've got no midweek game the next couple of midweeks, as a league game effectively. I think you go full strength next Saturday. I don't see why you wouldn't. So hopefully, that is the case. There was one moment when he came on and he kind of touched the ball, and I think Jota ended up getting a shot that was blocked or whatever, and always kind of running behind him, and Giakoumakis would have ran into the centre of the goal and looked for a cross, and O ran on the outside of Jota to get the pass kind of on the left, and I thought that's the kind of run Kyogo would make, whereas O seems to have the physicality of Giakoumakis as well, so he's almost like a bit of a hybrid of the two, which would be pretty amazing if that comes off. But I'm kind of quietly excited about him as well. I do have a wee point I could maybe bring up. You get anything else you want to talk about the match itself? Any players you want to single out?
Keep going.
I don't want to create controversy here, because there's enough people doing that. Bernabe wasn't in the squad for a third game in a row. We've not heard about an injury with Bernabe at all, have we?
No, he's in
reckon
training.
There's anything going on there? Anything to worry about?
I don't think there's anything to worry about. I just think Celtic have a lot of players, and Ange puts game changers on the bench, and I don't think... Maybe we don't need him in the match squad. That's Ange's thinking about it. I don't think it's anything to worry about, or it's something to note. Like, it's interesting that he's not. And he started those 2 games, didn't he? And then he kind of dropped out of the team and said he had a difficult couple of weeks. So maybe it's just part of the process of investing, improvement into Bernabe and not giving him, too much time in the spotlight, I would suggest. I don't know if it's something to worry about. Ange has spoken pretty positively about him when he is brought up, because he did also miss a few match squads early in the season. He was asked about it in a media conference and kind of insisted that, he has a lot of faith in his future, basically. So something to keep an eye on. I don't know if there's anything going on in the background, but he's certainly not injured. He's in training, so there's no worries to that extent.
I'm just looking at our bench. Unused subs today were Bain, Kobayashi, Iwata and Forrest. You only get 9 subs, and obviously 5 of them came on today, so obviously you need a sub goalkeeper, and Kobayashi, Iwata, Forrest. There's not really a weak link there that you would say would definitely shouldn't be there ahead of Bernabe. So it may just be the case that we've got a strong squad. It's just, I don't know, I just find it interesting that our second choice left back effectively, especially when Ralston isn't even on the bench as another full back. What would we have done today if Taylor had got an injury? Maybe Kobayashi could have played out there. Maybe that's Ange's thinking at the moment. That's my stirring over with. You can all continue with your lives. I was going to say something else. Yeah, the rock, paper, scissors from the St Johnstone players. Do you see that?
I don't know if I think I missed that. What you
so they got a free kick, and to decide which player took it, they did the old.
Oh yeah.
And that was. What's going on? What's going on in Scottish football this year?
I don't mind that. You're a moany guy today, Hamish.
I know.
You're very moany.
Lack of sleep, I'm going to say. Anything else, John? It's another week. 3 league games over the last 7 or 8 days. I was kind of looking at this thinking, Tannadice, Livy are always stuffy even in Glasgow, and today in a bad pitch, and I think we've scored 9 and conceded 1, which is pretty good.
13 games to go, let's put it that. It really does feel like we're already getting down to the stage where we're almost counting down the games now. Obviously we've got big matches ahead, but I think you're looking at on paper, like, away games are never a gimme in the Scottish Premiership, or at least haven't been traditionally for Celtic. This season, for large chunks of the season they have been, and And Ange was kind of talking before the game. He doesn't want to get caught up into this kind of point shootout with the Brendan Rodgers Invincibles team, who I think they managed to 106 points in the Invincible season.
They drew 4
and Celtic
games.
actually have the opportunity to overcome that points total this season. Remarkably, I think we can make it to 109. Is that correct?
What's 50? What's 13? Yeah.
109. So obviously that's become a little bit of a talking point, or been noted by supporters and journalists or whatever. But Ange wasn't one to get drawn into all that, because I think he knows how quickly things can change, and if he starts talking about making history and then Celtic drop points, you just know that everyone will make it far more dramatic than it needs to be. I've got a sneaking suspicion, obviously, it's more likely than not they would do drop points between now and the end of the season.
I mean, even for this team, I'll be stunned if we win our last 13 games. That'd be an unbelievable season. You'd be talking about winning 36 or 38 games.
But what I'm saying, the reason I'm bringing that up is because it hasn't happened yet. We keep winning, and we keep winning pretty handily and look comfortable, whether we're at home or whether we're away from home. We look comfortable and strong and dominant in pretty much every single game. And I think that's a really good sign, because we don't have any injuries at the moment, really. We've got Ralston back in training, who should join match squads from next week. Segrist is kind of coming back from injury as well. Those are our only real injuries. Everyone else is back in training. Everyone. Even James McCarthy's back in training. So it's looking good, is what I would say. Even if you look back to last year, Hamish, it always felt like we had an injury or two, or someone was out with the team, or someone was unavailable for whatever reason. And it hasn't happened this year, because Ange has been able to rotate and use the squad far more wisely than he was able to last season.
Yeah, as you say, 13 games to go. If you win 10 of them, given a goal difference, you're effectively going to be champions. And when you put it like we've won, 23 over 25 so far, that should be easy. But we'll wait and see how it goes. It's Cup next week, as we say, St Mirren at Celtic Park. Then we've got Aberdeen coming up at Celtic Park, which will be a big game, even though they're struggling. They got a good result yesterday. They'll have a new manager in by that stage, I would guess. So that'll be a big one. And then the Cup final against Rangers. And then we go to St Mirren after that, who are the only team to beat us this season, back in Paisley. So it's an exciting few weeks. Just generally, you kind of touched on it there. How are you feeling about us winning the league this year? I mean, it's I don't think anyone thinks it's a shoe-in yet at this point, but it's looking very good, isn't it?
Like I say, we just keep getting the job done, and while we'll have this 9-point gap or whatever it is, it doesn't look like we're going to relinquish it easily by any means. And everything that's asked of us, whether it's difficult pitches, going away from home, stodgy matches at home, whatever it is at this moment, it just doesn't seem like much can stop us. And as I said, when you have players like Kyogo, Aaron Moy, Jota, Maeda all stepping up to offer something, then we just seem to have too many options for anyone who comes up against us. And touch wood, obviously, you don't want to jinx it. But everything is looking very good, put it that way. I just think our squad looks so strong. I mean, you think about it, in January, Hamish, we lost Juranovic and Giacomakis, who were influential players last season. Lost them in a transfer window, and I'm not really looking at the squad and feeling like we're weaker at all for it right now, which is remarkable. Do you not think that's pretty remarkable?
Well, I mean, you look at the Real Madrid game, the first game in the Champions League, and you can add Jens in. Jens, Juranovic and Giacomakis were all kind of key parts of that. I don't think Jens started, but and we've lost all three of them, and you don't feel as if we've lost anyone massive. I think January was a really, really good month, and I think we're yet to see the full fruits of that. Of course we are. I mean, Johnstone, I think, is fitted in perfectly and just looks so steady. But I think there's so much more to come. I think we're still to see that sparkling performance from him that we kind of got with Juranovic eventually. I think there is definitely a very talented player there. Iwata, I know we both have high hopes for him as well, and Kobayashi as well for the future. I think ditto. So exciting, mate. Very exciting. We've got one message in here. You can tackle this if you want. Ty Jenkins saying, VAR taking too long to look at these goals. Shouldn't be that hard. Do you have a wee VAR go in you?
Man, I always have a wee VAR go in me. And actually, it's very frustrating. It seems to be every single Celtic goal at the moment. I'm not sure if this is happening in other games in Scotland. I'm not sure if it's just the Scottish implementation of VAR is taking ages, but it does take ages, and it's kind of ruining the buzz of goals for a bit, because you're checking your watch for 2 minutes after the goal goes in and worried what they're going to find, what they're going to come up with to possibly disallow it. All the VAR chat, my thoughts on this have been made clear. Interesting to see that kind of VAR trial at the Club World Cup about kind of explaining or kind of saying what the reason behind the decision was. But I think if you really want to kind of push VAR forward, and not just in Scotland but in every league, I think you really need to think about opening up the audio like they do in rugby, or at least, in Major League Soccer they release the VAR audio for the most controversial decisions on YouTube, and have someone explaining it and releasing all the audio so you hear the decisions and the conversations between the officials. Obviously, I don't think the Scottish FA have the bottle to do that. I don't think that's going to happen in Scottish football anytime soon. But I think if you really want to add credibility to VAR and make it what officials want it to be, which is something that fans can trust and managers can trust and players can trust, then I really think you need to open up the transparency, because it's a bit of a nonsense at the moment. Let's put it that way.
I don't even know what the inside of Clydesdale House looks like. We've not even seen any images of it at all, and you get that in most other leagues. Certainly at the World Cup, and I think in Germany they kind of go to the VAR studio just as the teams are lining up, and we're clearly got something to hide. I wonder what that could be. Anyway, on that note, we'll say goodbye. Thanks very much, John. We'll be back tomorrow talking about whatever else has happened in the world of Celtic. Speak to you then.